Keith Hernandez joins us for this episode of the Shea Anything Podcast. Lots to revisit in the booth with Keith. You'll understand what that means in just a second. We're going to talk about all the substance checks and Tylor Megill and his debut. We'll also talk about Francisco Lindor and trying to get some consistency out of him. It all starts right now. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's Doug Williams and Keith Hernandez with you. A reminder to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate it. And Shea Anything is now brought to you by Verizon. It's 5G built right for the Mets. From the network more people rely on only on Verizon. I have the sponsorship read yips. For some reason, that same sentence has just been giving me problems. And sometimes that happens. By the way, Jeff, our producer, I was feeling all... proud of myself, proud of you for hooking me up with a microphone. And now, we get ready for this podcast and Jeff's like, it's a little echoey in the room you're in. It's like, I'm never going to be in the perfect situation. It's just never going to happen. Keith, I want to start this episode by revisiting a couple funny moments in the booth. We'll get Jeff ready to cue it. The first one, we hear your vocal cords a little bit. So let's take a listen.
When Pete hits his next home run, to tie Keith on the all-time Mets home run list,
yes,
will there be a special celebration, or does he have to wait till he passes by Keith for 23rd place?
I think he has to pass him.
Should Keith be down on the field to present him with a bouquet of flowers or something?
Keith? Yes. I'll go down.
Maybe you should bring your movie cameras.
That was that Eddie Arnold song, I'm
What's
sending you a big bouquet of roses.
I don't know that one.
We got to hear your pipes on the air and not just your broadcaster voice. That was a funny moment. Yeah, I would kill to see you on the field with a bouquet of roses.
A red bouquet of roses. Eddie Arnold. You probably don't know who Eddie Arnold is. He was great. Neither did Gary. He was an absolutely beautiful country western singer back in the 60s, 50s, and 60s. He was terrific. He had a great voice.
I was shocked that Gary didn't know anyone. Like, his brain is just an encyclopedia. And I was shocked that there was any musical artist that he wouldn't know or remember. But the red bouquet of roses just went over his head.
I don't think Gary's a country western fan, aficionado for sure. He's not. He's more rock and roll. He likes, the Ramones and all that stuff. He likes that heavy stuff.
Well, yeah, I've seen the pictures of Gary with his long hair as a rebellious teenager. So you were a fan of the old country western music when you were younger?
I prefer the old stuff like Hank Williams and going back, Marty Robbins and his ballads. And I grew up with that. That stuff's, my parents loved music and they loved a wide range of music. So I was exposed to a lot of different genres.
I love the music I still go back to that, my parents used to listen to when I was a kid. It brings nostalgia, and you realize that it just kind of brings you back to exactly where you were when you used to listen to it. All right. The other reaction revisited that we want to get has to do with something that we also deal with and occasionally struggle with on this very podcast. Let's take a listen.
I heard it. That means the dogs heard it. That means there's barking going on everywhere.
I've got the mute on. I don't know what's happening. Now that was Robin, one of my neighbors feeding Haji.
Do you know that?
Yes.
Or you're just assuming that?
I got the ring on. So
you've got the video as well as the chimes.
Yes.
So you're monitoring your front door from our...
No, it's not the front door. It's in the house. I have one in the foyer that covers every entrance.
I'm glad to see that your security is top-notch. The home office has reported, Keith, I am told my dogs are going bananas.
Again?
Yeah.
It was very low.
Well, apparently not low enough.
All right, well...
I had neighbors as well let me know that their dogs, when they heard my ring chimes in the front door, they went ballistic too. Dogs
So
started barking.
that chime is like the ring doorbell sound for somebody at the door. So I'm asking. So Gary's talking about his dogs at home, knowing what that sound means and thinking there was somebody at their door.
Yes, and everybody else. He said around 20 people called Lynn, and I got a couple of people that texted me and said their dogs. So they must have ring too, so the dogs know that's the front door. And sound the trumpets. I mean, sound the alarm.
There's a couple of commercials on TV right now for Uber Eats that have doorbells in them. And like we have just an old fashioned doorbell at the apartment. And every time the commercial airs, our dog freaks out and thinks somebody's at the door. It's shocking to me that, companies would put a doorbell in their ad. I feel like people are writing those companies constantly being like, can you stop with the doorbell? Like, why do you need it? I also picture your house now like a casino in Vegas. You just have camera angles of everything. And I mean, even though that Robin's just coming to feed Haji, it's got to be tempting just to keep an eye on the house, make sure everything's, safe and sound. And I love how after the clip, Gary's like, so what's the point of being able to see it when you're not there? And you're like, God, call Southampton police.
Well, yeah, actually it's Southampton town is my jurisdiction. So, and they're a little slow to getting to places, but it's just security. People know where I am. I can't. I'm on a broadcast. I can't have put up my vanishing cream. It's long gone. They have to see me, have to hear me. So I just have it around the perimeter of the house. So just as another safety measure, along with everybody else, have an alarm system.
Yeah. So let's do a 3-batter rule, Keith, back on the field. Look, I found it interesting watching Tylor Megill last night make his big league debut, and another one of those kind of unheralded prospects where, he comes up throwing 97 miles an hour, and he had a good performance. Of course, he's coming off the mound, and they check him for substances. We'll talk about that in a second. But what did you think of the way he looked?
Well, I mean, he got out of the first inning, and he was very nervous. It's his first appearance. He's in New York. I thought he acquitted himself quite well. Threw strikes. He comes after hitters. A big, tall guy, throws hard, and got a slider. Change-up's a work in progress. But it's just I felt badly that he couldn't get through the fifth inning. I mean, the fifth inning to get a win. When they gave him the 5-run lead in the second inning, I think that kind of helped him. Loosened him up a little bit, and they run him out there. Throw strikes like that, run them out there. And if there's there's a need now with all these games, we're finally getting through this patch. So I really think that the All-Star break will be very welcoming for this team to kind of catch their breath. And but they're going to have issues with starting pitching. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, and speaking of which, Keith, the second of the 3-batter rule, Joey Lucchesi. Look, I know you were a fan of the pitcher. And I know it's such bad timing for him because he was finally seemingly putting it all together, and Rojas was letting him go deeper, and it's just got to be tough if you take me through the mindset of a big league player to feel like you're finally getting your footing, and then have basically a clean tear of your UCL right when that happens.
Well, pitchers always rely on their arms. They're everyday player doesn't have. I mean, he relies on a lot of things, but pitcher's arm goes. That's how they make their living, and it's a lot of stress. It's too bad that this happened to him. He's not going to be able to pitch probably well into, the August, September next year. I mean, it's that kind of recovery. So it's a shame. I thought he was a sleeper. I felt that he was one of the sleepers in the offseason moves, and I thought he had a chance to be a real help to the team, and he was. And it's just, what are you going to do? It's just a shame.
Yeah. And meanwhile, we keep talking about the top three of the rotation, and, Stroman's got a hip issue. It doesn't sound too serious. David Peterson's got to step up. I mean, it's no longer, hey, you get what you get from him. I mean, he's got to be a legit number 4, and he's got to be the guy he was last year. And I think that's a big part of this team moving forward is going to be his ability to pitch like he belongs in that rotation. And it's not just the best option that they have. He needs to pitch like a guy that belongs in the big leagues. And we've seen some better signs from him. I want to do a deep dive in the third of our 3-batter rule into the substance checks, Keith, because look, there are always going to be examples of when it goes wrong. So Max Scherzer, Joe Girardi, Sergio Romo, Megill coming off the field after his debut and having to do it. Optics wise, does it bother you? And do you think there's a solution for it if it does?
It's just so reactionary, and everybody's afraid that they're not doing something. I mean, they're checking them in the same spots. There's so many places you can hide stuff. And I'm sure that they're probably not now, but I mean, they're checking the belt. They're checking the hat, they're checking the glove. Well, there's other places, that you can put foreign substance. I mean, pitchers hit. So why not put pine tar in their bat and go up there and rub the pine tar on their pants, on their thighs, on their pant leg. And you can you can put a lot of pine tar on and gooey and rub it on your uniform, and it's on your uniform. And so I think it's silly. I just think the whole issue of RPMs, and I mean, how many revolutions of the ball going home is it going to increase? It does help the grip, that's for sure, but I think it's much ado about nothing, and I think it's CYA because these hitters there's a lot of bad hitters on the major league level right now, and a lot of people are embarrassed that have taught this philosophy of hitting, launch angle, home runs, balls in the air, and the pitchers have finally caught up to them and realized that they got a big hole upstairs and they can't touch it with a 10-foot pole. So it's time, as I said before, for the hitters to make the adjustments. But a lot of kids now have been taught at a young age to swing up, and those are old habits, and they're hard to break, particularly when you're being taught at a young age, and that's your swing from youth. Those are hard habits to break. I mean, I watched very closely when the Cubs were in town because we heard all about Chris Bryant changing his swing. It's the same swing. It's hard to change your swing. He was in a slump. We did notice that he held his hands higher. He stood a little more upright, but still it was the same swing, and he has a hard time with the pitch up and upstairs, up and away, up and in. So, like I said, your swing's your swing, and I just find it. I love it when they say I retooled my swing. It's hard to get in the box when you swung one way most of your life, and then all of a sudden, in one winter of retooling, all that rote in your brain is going to go away, and you've got a new program. You're not a computer, if you're a human being, and people in the course of a long season, they're going to get back into their old way of hitting. So I don't know what to say, but it's almost to the point with the offense that everybody's saying it's embarrassing, and it's getting to the point where sometimes I think it's going to be humiliating what's going on. So we'll see what happens.
I will say that, in terms of looking at RPMs and how that actually manifests itself, Keith, I mean, Garrett Cole's an example. Last 2 starts, he's thrown 2 or 3 starts, like 15 innings, and he struck out 10. And he's a strikeout pitcher. He's a guy who strikes out over 10 per 9. And, I think when you describe it a little closer and you realize that we're talking about like one rotation of the baseball, maybe, or half, it sounds like it doesn't make a difference. But I think with some guys it does. Now, to your first point, it being reactionary, absolutely. Like, if you think about it, the sign stealing scandal, this scandal with pitchers doctoring baseballs, the media broke those stories. Major League Baseball is not getting ahead of anything. I mean, I get it. They're a business. You're not just going to go out of your way to make your own business look bad. But, if it's not for the original stories in The Athletic, we don't know about the Astros banging trash cans. If it's not for, the stories in SI about, is this really becoming problematic? The pitchers are getting more and more spin rate. Then I don't think Major League Baseball is doing anything about it. So, again, to your point, it just feels a little bit like look how much we're taking care of this. Look at all these pitchers getting checked in front of your eyes. And meanwhile, I personally, I don't need to see it happen. Like, just do it in the clubhouse. Jerry Blevins made this point. I forget if it was on another podcast or I know he's written some stuff about it too, where it's like, I don't need to see people pee in a cup to know that they're getting tested for steroids. Does it really have to happen to Max Scherzer, like the most intense, crazy guy on a big league mound, when he's coming off of it? It just makes me feel uncomfortable for him. And I can't even imagine how he feels.
Well, I mean, it didn't bother Jake. It's just Jake's more laid back, and Scherzer's all fired up when he pitches. So it's just depends on the individual's personality. He certainly was ticked off, that's for sure. And to me, it's a lot of wasted energy. And whatever happened in Philly and Washington, evidently Girardi was going after Kevin Long. He wasn't going after Scherzer, and that's his former hitting coach. So maybe there's some bad blood there. But the manager has a right to ask an umpire to check a pitcher. And people had razor blades in my day and emery boards. I think those would be far more effective than just the grip, getting a grip. So I just think it's much ado about nothing. And I just think that the hitters have regressed so much that they better make an adjustment. If they don't hit that high fastball and they don't stop swinging at it. And this is another thing too. We all talk about these hitting coaches and look into your little window where you can do damage. Well, I don't see hitters today, when not all of them, but the great majority of them, I don't see them looking into a little area where they can do damage. They're swinging at pitches, foot inside, foot outside, and they're fastballs. They're not breaking balls. And they're swinging the pitches up here. You can't hit it. Discipline yourself to lay off the pitch. Work on it in BP. You don't have to go on an iPad and look like a golf instructor where that swing has to be just, looking at the videotape. It's a simple thing. If you can't hit a high pitch, learn to lay off of it. Just lay off of it.
Yeah, I think it's important to talk about the hitters the way you are, because that's the source of this. If offense in baseball wasn't down drastically, we wouldn't see this eyewash that we're seeing right now. You're listening to the Shea Anything Podcast, brought to you by Verizon. It's 5G built right for the Mets from the network more people rely on, only on Verizon. All right, I got through that one clean. Maybe the yips are over. In terms of up downs, our newest segment, we're going to just talk about Francisco Lindor, because right now he's both. Keith, he has a night like he had last night, today being Thursday. He has a night or a day like he did, I think it was this past Saturday, when he drove in all 5 runs. And then between games like that, it just seems like it's quiet. And look, the excuses are gone for the Mets offensively. They scored 7 runs last night. They needed that. Conforto's back. McNeil's back. You have Dom. You have Pete. You have Lindor. You've got McCann. It's cute. The replacements, the bench mob, they're scoring as many runs as they can. Those days are over. Mm-hmm. The Mets need to start scoring runs. So isn't consistency from Francisco Lindor the most pivotal aspect of this team offensively?
Well, he's hitting second. And you can't tell me that with the years he had in Cleveland that he was swinging this way. He's got a long swing. So I didn't see him play in Cleveland hardly at all, so I can't have a database to go back and look at him in his big days in Cleveland when he had big years. But I can't imagine with what he's doing now, because we're 70 plus games in. Are we played 70 games yet? We're close to it, or we played 70 games. So it's not like, okay, it's first 6 weeks of the season and he's just off to a bad start. This is a good chunk of the season, almost half the season, and hasn't been able to be consistent. He's had his days, like he did last night, and the Mets need to see him be consistent. Now, maybe, McNeil's a hitter. Conforto came back. Maybe this will. They got 5 hits last night amongst them of the 13, the 2 of them. So maybe it takes the pressure off Pete. Maybe Pete's not swinging the bat good. Okay, and he's under the radar because everybody's focused on Lindor. Pete has been struggling big time, and maybe the addition of Conforto and McNeil now will loosen everybody up. Because I guarantee you, when you're offensively struggling as a team over a long period of time, guys tend to grip the bat a little tighter, try a little harder, and someone has to spark them where you get a catalyst, where you start scoring runs and you start believing in yourself again, and everybody loosens up and performs. Now, we've got that middle of the lineup back now with Conforto left-handed, hitting third, Alonso cleanup, hitting right-handed, hitting fourth, and then Dom left-handed. It's a nice balance up the top of the lineup. But back to that again. McNeil, switch hitter behind him, then the left, right, a balanced lineup. And it's a pretty solid lineup now, through Dom. So they scored 7 runs last night, I believe. And let's see if that's a sign of where we're going forward. Now, McNeil and Conforto are going to be very fresh, and they're not going to be tired. They're going to be excited to be back in, and we still got a lot to see. We got 90 games left. It's a lot of season. So we'll see what happens.
I got to say, too, Jonathan Villar, his MRI apparently came back clean on that calf. He looked like he pulled something. That's just what guys look like when they pull something rounding a base. But sounds like he didn't. And Jeff, you could bleep this out, but Keith has said on the air with me before that calves are a bitch. And it's just VR is, in my opinion, one of the most important guys on this team. Seems like he gets on base, first of all, to lead off every game. And, he's getting on base about twice a game. And at that rate, with his speed, it forces things. And DeGrom start the other day, he walks and then he gets to second base and he's at third base with 2 outs and the Mets get a hit, and or it wasn't even a hit. It was a pass ball. And when the team is struggling offensively, isn't that catalyst to the top of the lineup kind of, I know I'm looking at it in kind of an old school way, but like you need that. You need somebody with speed who gets on base, and VR is that guy.
Yes, and you have to be careful with the calf. Now, the MRI came back clean, but obviously when you get a cramp, or it's a sign of a weakness in the muscle, so it's a tough call. But I guarantee you the calf is what you burst out of the box on. If you're a left-hand hitter, it's your back foot, you bust out of the box. It's all that stress goes to the calf. When you steal a base, from a lead, from a standstill, it's the calf that takes all the force, and you're going to have to be very careful with him. What are they going to do when he comes back and he's at third base? Well, you're going to lead off McNeil, or are you going to lead off VR? That's an interesting question. Do you want to move VR down the lineup into the 7 hole? I always think the 7th position in the order is very underrated. It's got to be a veteran hitter that has a good eye, good knowledge of what he's doing, because he's got an 8th place hitter hitting behind him, followed by a pitcher. That's what Ray Knight was for us in '86. Ray Knight was just a fabulous 7th place hitter, and he had Rafael Santana hitting behind him. And Rafael that year had a bad year. He had 218, but Ray had a great year. It's got to be a veteran. I kind of like McNeil leading off and move Villar down because I think Villar is a good clutch hitter too. But it'll be interesting to see what Louis decides.
Yeah, and Nimmo is eventually going to come back, and he's the leadoff hitter when everybody's healthy. Beyond even the two of those guys. Before we go, Keith, just want to get your take on what it's been like being back in the booth. I mean, having Gary and Ron in the same room as you. Have you, is it like riding a bike? Does it feel completely normal at this point, the nonverbal communication that we don't see and, things like that, where you're able to know where the other is going, things like that?
Well, it's seamless. It's just nice that we can look at each other and converse and not, we weren't able to see Gary. The one thing that I noticed off the bat was when we all got back our three in the booth, was like, give me some elbow room here. So we're tight in there, and we didn't realize because I was just Ronnie and I over in the other booth, had plenty of space, and Gary is by himself with the statistician. He had plenty of space, and I just noticed first thing I'll write off how tight we are in there. And I'm left-handed, and Ronnie's right-handed, so it's Gary here, Ron, me. So Ron and I, we rub elbows. When I eat at a dinner table, I make sure I'm on the left side so I eat with my left hand. I eat next to a right-hander, it can be rough. Same thing with writing, scoring. And we were able to go down in the field. I went down the field yesterday for the first time. I haven't met Villar, I haven't met McCann. I haven't seen the guys that were the regular guys that have been here in the past. I haven't seen them. I haven't had any contact with them, going back to last season. So I got to say hello to Pilar. I got to talk to Jeff McNeil. I got to introduce myself to James McCann. It's like spring training.
What have those conversations been like with these players that, you didn't know? Have you actually gathered some, background information that you find useful?
Yesterday was just introductory. And they were busy doing their drills, and we're not allowed around the batting cage, where when I played, batting cage was always, and I never minded the press around the batting cage. Actually, I kind of liked it. And, but we're not allowed. So they're out in the field. It's hard. We have to prepare. So I haven't got that much time. So I was able to say hello to those guys because they were in the dugout. And so it's all introductory for the new guys, just saying hello, just I'm Keith Hernandez. Nice to meet you finally, so it's just kind of breaking the ice.
Yeah. All right, Keith. Well, a reminder to everybody who's listening to subscribe to the Shea Anything Podcast wherever you get your podcast. And also a reminder that it's brought to you by Verizon. 5G built right for the Mets from the network more people rely on. It's only on Verizon. Keith, have a good weekend. I know we've got the last off day in quite some time today, and right back to it with a doubleheader tomorrow. So we appreciate you joining us, and thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.
I am going to have a superb off day today. I'm going to barbecue in the backyard. I'm just going to lounge around and be a big slob.
Sounds great. All right, Keith, thanks.